Hello everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be looking at Laravel 9 and getting a project up and running and really going through some of the key components of Laravel. So I'm doing this one a little bit different. Usually I do tutorials where I've pre-written the code base and I have everything with me and I know what I'm doing. In this case, what we're going to be doing is working through it together, and that way I can go through the documentation and sort of show you a more real-world example of how you would build an application in the real world, where you'd be looking through documentation and figuring out how things work. I do know Laravel. I spent 3.5 years as a Laravel developer, but I've spent the past 3 years as a PHP developer working for companies that use their own custom frameworks. So it's been a while since I've used Laravel properly. I am still familiar with everything, but obviously as the versions go up, we're on version 9 now. I think the last one I used was 8. So things have changed a bit, but what we're going to do is this is sort of a new style of tutorial for me. We're going to be working through it together. And if you do like this kind of tutorial, this more like real world tutorial, let me know and I can keep doing these. I think it could be useful to give people a real world example of what it's like to actually work on a project. So we're going to get started on Linux. So the only thing you need for this tutorial is, first of all, you need to know PHP, of course, but secondly, you need Docker and Docker Compose. On Linux and Mac, it's really easy to get that set up. You can Google that and get it set up really easily. Windows is a little bit different. If you're on Windows, I'd honestly recommend that you get a dual boot and have Linux, some kind of Linux distribution as your second boot. So you've got Windows and Ubuntu or Fedora or something like that. Getting Docker set up on Windows, for me, isn't really worth the effort. I've tried before and I couldn't do it. And I just couldn't be bothered I couldn't be bothered working my way through it and fixing all the issues. So yeah, I'm just on Ubuntu at the moment, and I would recommend, if you're new to Linux, Ubuntu is quite a friendly distribution to go for. So the getting started on Linux section gives us a command to run here, which will download the script to set up Laravel. As you can see here, it downloads it and then passes it through to Bash, which will run the script. So if we open up our command line, and let's just be careful about copying and pasting this because I don't want it to run. Okay, I want to change this part here. So this example app will determine what your app's called. So the folder that it creates is decided by this last part of the URL. So we'll go with something like my Laravel app. I think that'll be fine. And then if we enter there, I might just make this a little bit bigger. If we do enter, it should download everything we need. So it might take a little bit of time. It is downloading and it's also running the setup. So it's downloading all of your Composer dependencies in a Docker container, and it's also setting up, so it's setting up the application key as well. Yep, and you'll probably just need to put in your password, and then we're done. So, really easy, and we can cd into there and cd into my Laravel app, and then we can do /vendor bin sail up -d, and this will bring up sail. Sail, if you're not familiar with it, we can have a look at packages and look at sail. It basically uses Docker Compose to set up a development environment. So I've got introduction here, and you can see it creates a great starting point for building Laravel applications. It sets up everything you need, so like a container with PHP, a container with MySQL, a container with Redis, and basically everything you would need with a Laravel application. And it does it really easily. If we go back to our command line, as you can see, it's brought up all of our Docker containers that we'll be using. And that is about it. I think we'll need to run the migrations too. So there's some migrations that Laravel has. If we open up code, actually, that's probably easier, and I can show you what I'm talking about. So what I will do is make this already big. Oh, I think it's already bigger. So If we look at database and we click migrations, we've already got some here for users. We've got personal access tokens and password resets. What we want to do is use something called Breeze to get up and running with authentication really easily. So what I'll do the vendor bin sale command, but instead I'm going to do artisan migrate just to add those migrations. So if you try and do this and you get an error saying that it can't connect to MySQL, it's probably because the Docker container for MySQL is setting up. So just leave it for a couple of, maybe like 30 seconds, and then try and run this migration command again. This one here, and then it should work. So what we want to do is require Breeze. So if we have a look in the documentation, and we look at packages, and we look at Breeze, we can see what it does here. It gives you a head start building your Laravel application. It is basically a starter kit for your application, so it gives you scaffolding for some routes, controllers, and views specific to registration, and basically anything to do with authentication, so registration, login, that kind of thing. And it sets some other stuff as well, so it can set up React, Inertia, and Tailwind CSS, which is really useful, and that's what we're going to be using. So the command for this, and I'm just going to create some space just so you can see. I could do clear actually. There we go. It's going to be /vendor again. You can create an alias so that you can just type in sale, but that's a bit out of the scope for this tutorial. Bin sale artisan. Hang on, we need to install it first. So we can composer require Laravel /breeze --dev. So we'll let that install. That shouldn't take too long. There we go. And then we can do sale again, but what we'll do is artisan, which is it's a utility for running commands on Laravel, by the way, if you're not familiar with artisan. So a lot of commands like artisan, make controller, and make migration, stuff like that, all use artisan. So Breeze install, and then we can specify React. So we do this, and that should, all being well, that should work. So we can see what it's installed, and we've got Breeze, we've got Ziggy, which is basically takes the routes that you have on your backend. So for example, if you had blogs and you had a route to create a blog and show a blog and stuff like that, and update a blog, it will, and those are named routes as well, so you'll have like blog.create and blog.update. We'll look at named routes in a little bit, but basically it passes those named routes into the front end so you can use them there as well. It just makes things easier. We'll get into that a bit later on. But what we'll do is do npm install. So this will install all of the JavaScript dependencies that Breeze has added. So it doesn't do them automatically. So then we can do npm run dev. And if we go to localhost, http localhost, go there, we should see not only the Laravel page, but we should see up here, it's really hard to see, but we should see login, and we should see register as well, so you can see here. And these should all work, by the way. These should all work right out of the box. So as long as we've got the migrations, so like the user table and stuff, these should all work. So if we go back to our code, and we can test this out. So if we go to, and there's a folder in here called resources, which is where all your JavaScript, your views are stored. Although in the case of Inertia, the views don't really matter, because the only view that you're going to use is this app.blade.php, and it calls Inertia in here, as you can see. So basically that's just going to transfer everything over here, which is the JavaScript folder, and then you've got this app.jsx, which starts your Inertia app. And then from there, again, you don't have to worry about this either. In here you've got pages, and this is where you'll see all your pages. So this is basically views here, where you would normally see all your Blade views. you're basically seeing it all up here now, but instead of being written in Blade, it's now JSX, because it's React. So if we have a look at welcome, and you see welcome's got a ton of stuff in here. We don't actually need this really, but we'll keep it anyway. We can see this documentation here, which is basically this part here. If we change this to be just a load of random letters and save it, it should update in real time, which is really useful. So we change that back, and again, it updates. So now that we know that's working, we can actually start having a mess around with some things. So the first thing we probably want to do is create a, let me just find it, a controller. So we've got some controllers in here. We've got all the auth controllers, by the way. So this is all the stuff that Inertia creates for you. And what we want to do is create a controller of our own. So if we have a look at resource controllers. So resource controllers are basically controllers, except they're automatically populated with some functions that are specific to CRUD. So you can see up here it says CRUD. Create, read, update, and delete. So if you create a controller and add this -- resource on the end, it will automatically add some code in there that adds basically all the functions you need for creating whatever resource it is. So in this case, it's a photo controller. We're just going to be doing a simple blog. So it'll be blog controller, and it'll have all of the functions we need to create a blog. But we don't just want to create a normal resource controller. We want to make it even better. And to do that, we will have a look at something called root model binding. There we go. So what root model binding is, instead of, if you go to like /post, and we can actually see the URLs up here, so this is all the URIs that you would use. So let's say we went to this /photos and then /photo. Usually, if you use normal resource controllers, all you would do is get an ID, so like the ID of the photo, so it'd be /photos /1, and in your method, which in this case it says it here, so action show, so we'll be looking at the show function, and we'll get into this in a second, it would pass through an ID, and what you would have to do is then use the ID to query the database and get the photo with the ID of, let's say it's 1. But that's fine, and if you want to do it that way, that's fine, but you can make it a little bit easier by using something called root model binding. And what this will do is make it so that instead of returning 1, the ID for the photo, it'll just return the photo model itself. So it will basically do that part for you, the part where it finds the photo with the ID of 1. It'll do that for you and just pass in that photo already. It's already been got from the database for you. So it's already there ready to use, basically, which is quite useful. So what we will do is copy this command here. So we're actually not going to copy it all, so we can get it from Artisan, because we need to do it using, need to open up a new tab, hang on. So we're obviously going to be using sale, so /vendor bin sale, and then we can add in the command that we just copied from Artisan. So Artisan make :controller, and we're not going to do photo controller, we're just going to do blog controller, and the model, let me just make this a little bit wider so you can see. So the model is going to be blog, and then we're going to do -- resource to create a resource controller. Now, one thing that's really cool about this, and really useful, is that when you specify a model, if it doesn't exist, it will ask you if you want to create the model at the same time, which is really, really handy. So what you could do is, usually you would do a separate command for creating the model. In this case, you can just run this command and it will create the model for you. So it'll ask you if you want to create the blog model, say yes, and that's created for you. So if we look at our code, we can see that we've now got a blog controller, and it's already using the blog model, and then it's given us a load of functions here that we're going to use And these are basically the standard functions you would use in most applications where you just want to show a resource and update a resource. So in our case, it would be blogs. So this will show all of the blogs, this index function. This create will show the page used for creating a blog. This store will be used to store a blog. And this is basically for a post request. So some of these are get. So this is a get request. And you will get the page. Basically, you'll get a form to create a blog. And then you would post the contents of that form to this function here. And there's a few more. The thing to notice here is that we have this, so we've got this show method here which is used to show a specific blog, and usually it would look like this ID, and when we'd have to use this ID that gets passed through to find the blog. So we'd do something like blog and then like find by ID or something like that. But in our case, it passes through the blog itself. It already finds the blog for us, and then we can pass that through to the front end really easily. So that's a hugely useful thing, root model binding. Definitely worth looking into a little bit more if you want to know more about it. We can also look at the model, the blog model, and let's have a look at user as well. So yeah, that's fine. So we've got this blog model, and we could do with hooking it up to the user model. So if we do, and we can look at the docs for this as well. If we look at, let's go up. So if we look at relationships, and we look at Eloquent ORM and Eloquent relationships, the relationship we want is one-to-many. So one user can have many blogs. So we can really just get this code here, and this is for comments. So in this example, it's talking about posts, but in our case, the post would be user, and comments would be blogs. So we'll change that to fit our needs. So if we do this, and basically anywhere that it says comments, we just change to say blogs. So blogs, and then where it says comment, we just do blog, and it'll get the blog class. So we're saying that user has many blogs, and we can call this. So in our code, it would look something like this. So if we get the user, then we can just do blogs, and we can get all the blogs that belong to that user. So we can also do the inverse as well, which if we have a look in the docs is just a bit further down. So the inverse is belongs to. So now we're saying that a blog belongs to a user. So this is the inverse. So we can see here we've got belongs to. So if we grab that, and on the blog model, we can do user. And it's important to note that this is singular now, because we're not, this one was plural because we're talking about many blogs. This is singular because we're just talking about a single user. So it belongs to user class. So that's a relationship between the user and the blog setup. What we'll do now is we can get a migration going so that we can actually have this in the database. So we've got migrations that already exist, like this one, the user's migration. If we just create our own migration, and we'll find the part of the docs for this as well. So migration, and this will have all the information we need about creating tables. So we've got, let's see, so that usually like a command somewhere, and that is sort of the best place to get started, at least for me anyway. So yeah, it didn't even, oh, here we go. So PHP artisan, make migration, and then create, and in our case it'll be blogs table. So if we do that, and we run this, so it'll be the same as this basically with the make migration. So it's got /vendor bin sale artisan make migration and create blogs table. So usually when I would create a migration, and this was when I last used Laravel, what I would do is create the model at the same time I create the migration. So that could be something you do. You can specify the model in this command. But as I just showed before up here with this command, I'm creating the model at the same time I create the controller. Which way you do it is really up to you. It's not going to make much of a difference. It might make sense to make it with the migration because obviously they're very closely related, but to be honest, so is the controller. So it really doesn't matter which one you do. So now that we have that set up, we go back to our code and we go to our migrations. It should be the latest one we've got. So we've got ID. So this is something that Laravel provides. So this will automatically add an ID to the table, so an auto-incrementing ID. Timestamps, this will add created at and updated at. So created at will be filled in when you first create the document, and updated at will be anytime you save that document, essentially. So if you change something and save it, the updated at date will be updated. So we also want, and we can look at the users table as well actually for this, because it's got quite a few things in that we need. So we've got string here, so that'll be useful. So if we copy that, and in this new migration, we'll just call that title. And we can even look at the docs and see somewhere down here, it shows all the column types. So we can see here that we've got big increments, big integer, a load of things. We're looking for some kind of text. So you can see here we've got text. So if we click on that, it shows us how to use it. So text description, that's exactly what we want. So what we will do is add this to our migration, and we won't call it description, we'll just call it body, and this will be the body of the blog. And that's almost it. We've got one more thing to do, and I'm going to have to check what I used for this, because the last part is going to be the user ID. So let me just look at something quickly. So one of these column types is called foreign ID for. Let's try and find it. So foreign ID for, yeah, there we go. So this is what I want. So basically, because a blog belongs to a user, we need to specify which user that belongs to. And in order to do that, we need to add a user ID. So what I'm going to do is add this. We can either do it, well, we can do it two ways actually. We can do that foreign ID for, or we can do it with some kind of big integer, I think it is, that you would use. I'm trying to think of what column I would use for this actually, because it used to be different when you wanted to do like an integer. I think it's like unsigned integer actually. I might have a look at that. Let me see. If we look here, it should actually say, because a lot of them have examples unsigned big integer. I think that is what we want to use, unsigned big integer. I might be wrong. I'm trying to look at my old code bases to see what I use, because I've done Laravel work fairly recently, like in the past year or so. So let me have a look. Let's have a look. Unsigned big integer is what I used. Yeah. So I think we'll do that. So we'll do unsigned big integer. We won't mess around with the foreign ID form. We'll just do this. So table unsigned big integer, and we will specify the user ID. And then we can, I'll just copy and paste this, but basically table foreign created by references ID on users, fairly explanatory. The created by column is going to create a foreign key reference to the ID on users table. So this is how you would normally do it. There's obviously that foreign ID for. The only reason why I'm not using foreign ID for is because I don't exactly know how it works. So even though I've used it in a code base before, that was a while ago. So I assume that does the same thing as what we've just did. I'm just not 100% sure how to use it, which is why I'm being a bit more cautious here and just using this unsigned big integer and then doing the foreign key reference manually. But that foreign ID for probably does what we've just done there. So you might want to use that if you look into it and are comfortable using it. For the purposes of the tutorial, though, I think this is fine, and that's basically all you'll need for this. What we want to do is run artisan, basically the migrate command. So artisan migrate, and that should, oops, key column created by doesn't exist in table. Oh, okay, yeah. So I copied that stupidly, but yeah. User ID, I did created by. It basically needs to be the same name as the column. So in this case, user ID, it needed to be user ID. The other thing I did, the other code base used created by instead. So we can run that again, it should work. Okay, already exists. Let me roll back this migration. So we have a look at rolling back migrations. So we can roll it back quite easily. Migrate rollback, and that should roll back our. Actually, what we'll do is we'll just do it here. So migrate and then colon roll back. That should undo our. It's undoing everything, it seems. All right, that's fine. Let's do migrate. Yeah, it already exists, which is a bit annoying actually. If we do we could do a reset or a refresh or something. Yeah, we'll do refresh. So basically, what refresh will do is get rid of everything and then rerun your migrations again. So hopefully this drops everything, but it's just rolling back. I think the problem that is happening now is that blogs already exists. So the problem that we've got now is, I think because the migration failed, technically, it created the blog table, but it didn't count it as part of a migration. So if you want to roll it back, it doesn't really work. I'm not too sure if. Let's have a look. So there might be something we can do here. Otherwise, we can probably just connect to the database and manually delete it, which is a bit annoying, but we could do that. Let's do fresh. Let's try fresh. I think that might work. Actually, we don't really need to copy and paste commands because we can just basically redo this, and we just need to put fresh instead of refresh. So it says this will drop them all. So if it dropped all tables, it should get rid of our blogs table, hopefully. There we go. Cool. So Laravel gives you a ton of stuff that is really useful. So refresh, you can use a lot. The whole point of migrations and seeders as well, you can do refresh -- seed. So we could probably look at creating a seeder at some point in this tutorial. But things like refresh are really useful. Because the idea of migrations is that you can drop all your tables and then recreate them and be back in the same state you were before you dropped them all, albeit probably minus the data that you would have in the tables. But that's usually fine. So, and that's why you have seeders as well, to basically add all the data that you would need to get the application running, and then you can go from there. And it basically just makes the development experience really nice. So you can get rid of everything and then bring everything back. And fix mistakes like that I just did. So yeah, fresh will drop all of the databases. So that's a thing you've got to be careful of, by the way. Not refresh, but just fresh. Refresh is fine because it rolls back your migration, so everything's sort of controlled. But fresh will just drop it. It'll run the drop command from MySQL. So yeah, you got to be a bit careful with that one. But in my case, it worked out really well. So, but yeah, just be careful of that. So we got the migration done. That's fine. That basically means that we can start creating stuff. So what we probably want to do now is probably just close things down. Let's open up our controller. We've got blog controller. And we could probably start filling in some of these. So we don't actually have the inertia files yet. We can create the inertia files in a bit. But what we do have is everything installed, ready to go. So we can just start populating the controllers, and then we've got everything up and running. So let me just have a look. What we can do actually is look at the inertia documentation, which we haven't done yet, but it would be really useful. So routing. So we've got root, inertia. Okay. So I don't know if we have to bring anything in. Let me just check. So if we have a look. Right, yeah, I see what this is doing now. So this is in the roots. Actually, there's something that we're missing, and I think this is pretty dumb of me not to add this. If we look at our resource controller in... Let me have a look. Resource controllers. There is something we need to do to add the root, so we need to do this. So we can sort of copy and paste this. If we just... if you open up your roots web.php file, and we add the new controller that we created. So in our case, it's going to be blog controller, not photo controller. And if we look at auth, so we've got roots and then auth.php, we can see it's created these root groups. So we've got one that uses the middleware guest, and then one that uses the middleware auth. We want this one. So if we just grab this, we can just use this in our web.php file. And close that properly, like that. And then inside, basically any root that we put inside of this group, you need to be authenticated to use it, which is fine in our case. I think if you were doing an actual blog, you would want the blog posts to be seen without needing to be authenticated. But because we're doing this in a dashboard, we're basically doing the admin side of the blog as opposed to what a normal user would see. So we're adding like the ability to create and update a blog, which isn't something that like a reader would need to be able to do. So if we go back to the documentation and get this root : resource, and we pass this through, we pull this into our code base. I'm going to change this to blogs instead of photos and change this to blog controller. And that should be fine. So basically what this will do, and we can actually see it here. I think I showed this a little bit earlier, but basically what this root resource will do is create all of these for you. So we've got all the verbs here. So we've got get, post, get, put, patch, and delete. And then the URIs. So this will basically create URIs that are associated with each of the functions that we've got. So in our blog controller, we've got all these functions like index, create, store. And if we go back to the documentation, we've got index, create, store. So it's basically routing this URI to the function. And here we've got the root name, which I mentioned earlier. This is just a really easy way of simplifying roots. So instead of having to type in the URL all the time, you can just type in the name, photos.show, and it will link it to this URL, basically. It's like an alias. So that's really useful. And it also means if you change the URL for whatever reason, you don't need to change this name. It's already aliased to this name. So photos.show, you could change this to photos/photoid/show from the root, and then it would change across the application wherever you use photos.show. And I think that'll become a bit obvious later on when we actually use the name. So if we go back to our code, and now that we've got that should route to our blog controller, which is fine. And now we can start filling these. So with the index, all we need to do is get all of the blogs. If we do blogs equals blog, blog, and then all, that should be fine. You would probably actually want to do it so that you get the blog for the current user in index, but this is fine for us for now. So what we do is return, and we need to bring Inertia in actually. So we do, at the top, we can do use Inertia / Inertia, and then here we can do Inertia render, and the first thing we pass in will be the file. Let me just find resources. So pages. So basically here where it says auth, if we were going to do something for auth, we would do the folder. So it starts from this pages is the root. So you don't need to include this. Then you do it from here. So we've got auth, and then it'll be auth / let's say login. If we were going to do the login route, and we wanted to show the login page, which is here. In our case, we're probably going to do something like blog index, maybe. And then what we want to do is pass through to that file. Also that component, we want to pass through the blogs. So we would do blogs, and then just pass through blogs like that. So make sure to add a semicolon. For some reason it says undefined type for Inertia. But everything does work, so it does. I think it's just VS Code's not aware of Inertia for some reason. Not 100% sure why on that one. So create is even easier. We would do return Inertia render, and then this will be blog / create. So that will just show the create page. Store is a little bit more tricky. So because a blog belongs to a user, we need to add the user ID in there somehow. Now, how you do this is sort of up to you, and there's probably an easier way to do it than what I'm going to do now, but what we want to do is make... Do we need to make it mass assignable? Well, we'll do it anyway. We'll make it mass assignable. So if we go to our models and we go to blog, there's something called fillable, which you can see on the user model. You can see we've got fillable here, and it says the attributes that are mass assignable. So what we want to do is make it so that title and body are mass assignable. What I'm doing now, we might not actually need to do that because of the way I'm going to call comment. So usually, if you wanted to, not comment, sorry, blog, I'm thinking about the Laravel documentation, which uses comments as an example. So usually what you might do is do something like blog, create, and then pass in, title, and then whatever the title is, and then body. And in order to do that, you would need to add title and body to mass assignable, but we also need to add the user ID. And the user ID isn't mass assignable. And we also want to get it from the backend, so we can do auth. We can do auth, and that just brought in illuminate support for facades, and then auth. And we can do, from that we can get the user, like that. So that's going to say that doesn't actually work, even though technically it does. Syntax error. Oh, hang on a minute, is that fine? Oh yeah, that's fine. Okay. So auth user will get the current user, and then from that we can get ID, I think. ID. It's been a while since I've done this, to be honest with you. Let me have a quick look in the documentation, because I think there's quite an easy way to get the user ID, and I don't think it's actually... I think... Is it like this? So there's some helper functions that let you get... There we go. So helper functions are available basically throughout the application. So you don't need to bring in this auth here. What we can do instead is do auth user, and then I think we can get the ID from this, although I'll have to check the documentation to make sure I'm doing it properly. But I think you can get the ID from this. Is it just like that? I think there's a way of getting the ID without... Is that it? Get the ID for the currently... There we go. So auth ID, we can easily get the ID for the currently logged in user, which we need to add to blog. So what I'm going to do instead of doing blog create, I'm going to do blog. Oh, I'm doing pound signs. That's British PHP. Dollar blog equals new blog. And then what we can do is fill in this. So what we can do is use something called request validate. So if we do request validate, and basically what this will do is grab the input from the request, so the data that the user has sent through, and validate that it matches, well, basically the validation rules we're about to specify. And the good thing is it returns an array, which means this blog accepts an array as a parameter. So what this validate will do is return the array with the title and the body in it, and then it will initialize this blog. So really handy way of doing things, and if it doesn't pass validation, it'll just throw an error and return back to Inertia with the error. So this is just a really simple way of doing things. So if we do, I could probably do this maybe. I don't know how you would lay this out, but if we do, so we do title, and we do required. So we require the title, and we're going to do a max of, let's say 250. So it can only be 250 characters long. Then we can do body, and let's just say that that's required. Because it's a blog, it can be really long. And then what I want to do is add blog user. Hang on a minute, is it going to let me do blog user and then ID equals, and it's going to be equal to the currently authenticated user's ID, and then I'll do blog. I'll do blog save like that. And the reason why I've done this is just because it might be a bit of a pain to do the blog create function and then add this sort of crowbar this user ID into it, doing like a plus. So we'd have to do sort of plus and then another array like this, user ID, and then but then we would have to make the user ID mass assignable, which might be fine. It's been a while since I've used mass assignable, so that might not be too much of an issue. Mass assignable is more for things like a malicious user, trying to make themselves an admin by doing like, changing their role or something like that. Like if they did like an update here. So I've got this update here. If this update function accepted like all the parameters from all the data that got submitted in the request, a user could very easily submit like role and then put it to 2 and change their role when they're updating their user. They could do something like that, or like isAdmin. They could change that to true by just doing something like, sending through the request. It'd be something like, hang on a minute, how did I get rid of that? Okay, yeah, if they did like isAdmin and then they pass through true, right? If this was mass assignable, it would accept this and it'd be completely fine with it. It'd be completely fine with the fact that isAdmin was passed through. However, we obviously don't want users to be able to do that. So if we don't add it into this fillable array, it will throw an error saying, "Oh, isAdmin just isn't something that we can mass assign." So that's the kind of thing that we would have to do manually, and we would have to do it like this. So obviously, user ID isn't mass assignable, so I'm manually creating. So the end user basically can't pass through the user ID. I'm doing that manually. I'm assigning this user ID manually and then saving it. So if you do it like this, you can assign things. So I could do like, if I did like user is admin equals true, I could do that and then save it using something like this, user save, even if it's not mass assignable, because I'm doing that manually. It's just a safety precaution. And then what we want to do is return, redirect, and root. And it's going to be, the root is going to be blog dot, we could do index, probably fine. So this corresponds with what we saw earlier, which was those roots. I think it's in resource controllers. Really useful to keep all these things handy, by the way. So this here, this table showing all of the verbs and the URIs and stuff. So photos.index, or in our case it'll be blog.index, will go to /blogs, because we've specified it in the root in web.php. So /blogs. So that's store done, which should work fine. Show's going to be the same thing. So because we've already got the blog here, what we can do is do return inertia render, and it'll be blog/show. I don't know if I'm actually going to add this, by the way. I'm just going to do the back end for this and then the front end for like create and stuff. So blog show, and then we can pass in blog, and it'll just be a singular blog actually, and then we'll do blog. So that is fine, and that's quite a simple one. Edit's actually going to be pretty much the exact same. So we can copy and paste that and do blog/edit and pass in the blog that we want to edit. Update is going to be similar to store, except we'll probably not do this part. So yeah, what we might want to do is do, if we do blog, we can call update directly because we're not going to be changing the user ID on this. So if we do blog update, and then we'll do request, validate, and then pass in the array, and it's going to be, it's going to be the same as these ones up here basically. So if we add those in, so we've got the title, the body, and then we just return redirect. Oh, hang on, everything's tabbed in wrongly. Do that. Tab. There we go. All right, return redirect. And then in this case, we can actually go back, and that's because what this will do is it'll go back to the index page, I think, or it'll either go back to the index page or the edit page. I forget which one, but either way, we can just redirect it back. And then destroy is going to be blog, I think it's delete, or is it destroy? We'll do delete. I think it's delete, and then return redirect back. Whether you want to go back or not is really up to you. It depends how you've laid out your application. But we'll just go back to the page that they were on before. So this will probably go back to the edit page, I think, or maybe go back to index. It depends. But that should be fine. That's really it for the backend stuff. The only other thing that's left to do, I think, is policies, which is how you manage authorization. So if we're looking at policies, it should be really easy. So PHP artisan make policy. Now, it'd be this one here, I think, that we want. Let me have a look, because actually there is there's a lot of stuff with policies. Similar to routes, I think there's resource policies. Now, we'll have to look here to see. So generating policies, it probably is here, I think. Generating policies, registering auto discovery. Now that's probably what we want, writing policies. So if you use model option when generating your policy via the artisan console, it will already contain methods for the view any. Right. So that's really good. So what we want to do is use model, and it will automatically populate some stuff for us. So this is a great thing about knowing these artisan commands, is it will allow you to really quickly do things. So just clear. I don't know why I keep doing that. That's what I use for debugging. Just holding down the enter key to get away from the previous commands. So we do that. We'll have to add /vendor/bin. Bing. Sale artisan make policy. And in our case, it's going to be blog policy. Singular. Important to note that. With the model blog. And we'll see what that creates. It should create a policy for us and auto-populate it a little bit. So if we look at policies now, we've got this policies folder with a blog policy. And we've got view any. So we've got view, create, delete, restore, and force delete. Now you won't need all of these. Determines whether a user... So we can probably do... What should we do? So whether a user can create models. So that's fine. We can do return true on this one because we want any user to be able to create. As long as a user exists, I guess. So we could probably do... Yeah, I think that's fine. We'll just return true on that one. So view any. Whether the user can view any models. We don't want that to be the case, I don't think. So we want determine whether the user can view any models. No. We want users to be able to view their own blog, but not somebody else's. So return user ID is equal to blog user ID. And that will be true or false depending on whether they created the blog or not. And basically the same goes for everything now. We could just copy paste all of this. So basically we only want our users, and we don't need these by the way because we don't have soft deletes, which is what these are for. So soft deletes is a way of deleting stuff without actually deleting it from the database. So what soft deletes does is add a deleted at column. And basically, if the deleted at column isn't null, i.e. there's a date in it, then it will basically, it'll count it as deleted even though technically it's not. And the idea is just you can keep a history of the information without actually showing it on the front end. So if you do a query to get all blogs, for example, and we had soft deletes, it would exclude any blogs that have a deleted at filled in or that isn't null. So yeah, that's something to bear in mind. That's probably something quite useful, especially with blogs, because you probably want to keep the blogs, but you don't want users to see them on the front end, I guess. So if you delete a blog, you'll still probably want the admin user that created the blog to see it, but you don't want the sort of readers to see it because it's a deleted blog. So that's something that you can look into. But yeah, view any. Should we just... What I'll do is I'll add this in here just to... Actually, I see... Yes, so this is what we'd use this for admin users, I think. I'm just trying to think whether... I wonder if it's fine just to leave that blank. So basically, I think view any you would use for admin users. There's certain things that you can do to override everything. So basically, you can add in like an override in here. I think it's actually a separate function, but you can add an override that says that if a user is an admin, so if they've got the role of admin or something, is admin role ID equals and then 2, let's say that's the admin role, then they'll be able to view and delete and change anything. So you basically override everything, which is I think it'll be in the docs somewhere. So yeah, it's probably somewhere, but yeah, you can do response allow. That might be Okay, we can probably miss this out for now, but it's probably worth bearing in mind that you can also send responses back. So I'm just sending true or false, which will just be that's quite a simple thing, but you can say response allow or response deny, and that'll send a response back if, saying like, oh, you can't access this post, or blog in that case. So that's the policies done, I think. We'll have to test that in a little bit when we actually start making requests, but yeah, that should be fine for now. If we look at our front end stuff, we can see we've got pages. So let's create a folder in here called blogs. Did I call it blogs or blog? Let me check. Blog/index. Yeah, we'll just call it. We'll just get rid of that S. Rename it and call it blog. Okay. So we need a new file in here called index.jsx. Let me check these this dashboard. So what have we got here? So we've got layouts, authenticated. Okay, we might need this. Let's have a look at layouts. So we've got authenticated layout. Yeah, okay. So we'll need this. We can grab this from dashboard. So we need to change it a little bit, I think. Oh no, maybe not actually, because it's got @ I think we might be fine just grabbing. Yeah. Let's just grab this entire file, actually. We'll use this as a ground for index. So we don't really need head, although title, yeah, we can change the title, actually. So we'll call this blogs. So that'll be the title that appears on the tab in the browser. So we've got authenticated, which should work, I think. And yeah, we probably want to bring in some. We want to bring in the blogs. So that'll get passed through as a prop, I think. So if we look at routing, so what we'll do now is look through the Inertia docs and see what we get. So we get responses. Is this going to pass through the data? Let's look at pages. What we're looking for basically is, so user. I think that's how you do it. I think that's how you would. So you would pass through the props. You're probably going to say it somewhere. Just talking about layouts now. I think the props comes from here. So this, so for example, if we did this, yes, you can get props is here. So actually, what we want to do is do some destructuring, and we can just get blog, or in our case, it's going to be blogs. And then what we can do is, what does that look like? Hang on a minute. So what I'll do is I'll register. So if you haven't registered yet, you can just do that now. So we'll do JSON Retson test, and this can be anything you want, by the way. Test.com. Oh, test.com. Test password. Make this whatever you want. Don't save that. So this is what it looks like. Basically, we're going to do something really simple here. So what we'll do is, let's go back to code. What we want to do is loop through our blogs, basically. So we obviously haven't got a blog yet, but we'll add one in a little bit. So what do we need here? We don't really need this logged in, but what we'll do is do. This is going to be a nightmare. So I need to loop through the blog, but in React, which is always a bit of a pain in the ass. But let's let me grab something that will help. It's annoying because I write React all the time, but if I need to like do a map, it's I always find it a bit annoying for some reason. Yeah, so here we go. So we want to make sure that we've got blogs, and I think it might be blogs.data. Is that? Yeah, it seems to be the case. So if we do blogs.data, and we can check this in a second, and we do blogs.data.map, that's going to be blog. Why is this not? No, that's fine. I think I've done it wrong here. Hang on a minute. Let me do. Is that wrong or is that right? I think that's fine. So try to figure out what I want to do here. So I'll do a div. Div. And on this div, it keeps saying that I've got an error here. Hang on a minute. I think I need to do one more. There we go. So on this div, we're going to need a key. So each, when you do a loop, it needs a key attribute. So we'll do blog, and then we'll just put it as the ID because that should be unique. And then we'll do blog.title. And then we'll leave it at that. I think what would make more sense is if we do a root. So if we make it like a link that we can click on, that probably makes more sense. And what I'll do is I'll do class name and then maybe MB. Maybe 4, we'll go with that. So that should add, we don't actually have any blogs yet, so it's not really going to be something we can see. But if we create a new file in here called create.jsx, and we can basically pull in most of this stuff. And then we'll change the title to create blog. And then this is going to be dealing with post requests, so we can have a look at documentation. I know that there's some documentation here about forms. So we can basically copy a good chunk of this. So we need to use useState. So this is how we use state. This is how we do state management in React. So we can put this in here. So useState from React. Accidentally put in two sets of curly braces. So if we look at how they've done it, quite a nice way of doing it. So you've got values and set values, and then it'll handle change and it'll pass in the values, but then it'll update the value that you've changed. So this is a really nice way of doing things. We could probably get all of this actually if you want to copy and paste that. We'll do that. So yeah, what this is doing, and we can change this to title, body, and that's all we need because it'll grab the user ID from the back end. So these are tabbed in a bit wrongly, I think. That's fine though. And then this what this handle change will do is basically pass in all these values up here, but then replace whichever one we update, so title or body, with the new title or body. And then handle submit, we'll have a button that handles a submit, and then yeah, it'll send a post request to, and we'll do this to /blogs, and then that'll pass in the values. So we're not actually using the named routes, which we can get. So if we look at, let me see. So I don't know if we need to pass any, if we need to grab this, or if it's just gonna. I think it's just gonna work if we do. So instead of doing passing that through manually as a string, we can just do blog.store, I think it is. So we want to post to blog.store, and that should put in the URI into here automatically. So it'll get rid of this root blog.store and then replace it with /blogs. So if we have a look at what else they've done, so they do have the inputs and stuff here that we could use. So on change, yeah, we can probably just grab these. We won't bother styling too much. Actually, you know what? We can do the form as well. We'll just grab the entire form. This is what I do with documentation sometimes. If it's like good enough to use, I will just go for it and copy a good chunk of it. Oops, that was the wrong button. I want to indent these a little bit. these label input and button should be indented again. So on submit will be called when you press this button, and then it'll handle submit, which is here. Handle change will be called every time you add something into this input. So we'll change this to title, and this ID to title, and the value to title as well. This will be body. We can just copy and paste that and do body, and then we can get rid of this third one, which is for email, but we're not using the email. So that should be fine. Could probably try this actually. If we go to, I think it's going to be /blog/create maybe? Not found. Let me have a look and see. So if we go to our blog controller and go to create, it's going to render, yeah, but I guess what we need to do is look at the root, which I think I've added. So let's see what it goes to here. If we go to our, not function, sorry, resource controller. Look at resource controllers and go to this table here. So /blog/create, is that not where I went to? Oh, I did singular. Okay, that hasn't worked. Let's have a look, see what's going on. Network. So it seems to get things fine. Okay. Props is not defined. Oh, hang on a minute. Let me have a look at create.jsx. We don't. I mean, first of all, actually, let's just change this to create as well. There's no props in this, so we don't actually need that. Let's change this to index. And this does have props, so we can get a prop from here. But yeah, this create page doesn't have any props passed into it, which means that when we try and get props, it's going to throw an error. Let's see what else. Props is not defined. Where have I used that somewhere? Reference props is not defined. Create.jsx 27. Let's have a look. 27. Yeah. Okay. Props.auth. That's interesting, because why did this work? Oh, okay. I think. Okay. Props.auth is not being passed through here, even though it probably should be. Props. Maybe this is why. Okay, there we go. Wow, this form is. This is not a very good form. I haven't styled anything. Okay, let's add a little bit of styling. Just yeah. So basically, the issue is it was trying to get props.auth, but it couldn't because I didn't get props from here. Somehow this one still works. Maybe I haven't tested it actually. So if I do oh yeah, of course, because it's not. Okay, yeah. So I think if I need to do this, maybe this will work. Props. Let me try this. Blogs. Yeah, so the reason why I didn't see it would work is blogs is undefined. Okay, let me have a look. That should just pass through. Okay, what I'm going to do is get auth and errors from this and then just use them here, just to make it a bit easier. So we'll do auth errors. I don't know if that'll fix what I've got the issue. Oh yeah, it does fix it. Yeah, I think I couldn't do that, so I have to just do destructuring on all of the props as opposed to just doing like auth and then destructure on the other things. So yeah, if you're going to destructure, you have to destructure all of the props, it seems. So that's fine. And then we could probably do the same thing here, but I'll just leave that for now so we can do props. But I could do what I've done here with the auth and the errors and just pass them through like that. But that's fine. We can leave them as they are. So I was going to do a little bit of styling on this because it isn't particularly nice to look at. If I do class name, I'll do we'll do P4. And we can actually see this in real time, or we should be able to anyway, if we do blogs create. So that looks a bit better. Inputs are all in the same row, but that actually doesn't matter really. That's fine. The only thing I want to style is a button. If we do background blue 500 and do PY3 PX6. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Probably should have done it green, to be fair. Oh, and you know what I need to do? Actually, you know what? I will do it green. And I'll do the text as white as well, I think. So we'll do green because it's a submit button. And then we will do text. We'll just do white for now. I think that should show up nicely. Yeah, that's good. And you know what? I have to do my favourite thing, and that's round it. There we go. That is much better. Oh, you can even do... God, I can't... How white? Okay. You can even do hover, background green, and then should we make it go darker? 600. And transition. Transition colours. Oh, God. I love Tailwind. There we go. That's very nice. So we've got, it says first name and last name. It's not actually first name and last name. Let's change this to title. And obviously, for a blog, you're going to want to do a text box. But for what we're doing, it's really not that relevant. Is it body? Not data. Body. Just because we're testing, it doesn't really... It'd basically be the same thing, but with a text area. But this is fine. We'll just do an input. So what we should be able to do is submit this to our endpoints. We do test blog, and then we do contents of blog. Submit that. See if it works. It should redirect, although it might be redirecting back, maybe. Either that or I've done the blog.index. So redirect root blog.index. So I'm guessing that hasn't actually submitted. What do I need to do here? So, yeah, that's not actually sending a request. Let me check the file. So create.jsx, we've got button, type submit, on submit, handle. Yeah, that's not submitting for some reason, blog.store. I wonder if that's why it's not submitting. Inertia is not defined. Where's that? Hang on a minute. Inertia is not defined. Uncaught reference error, create.jsx22. Let's have a look. Oh, okay. Obviously. I need to pull in inertia. So if we do import inertia from inertia.js/inertia. So that should work. Do test title, test contents, and that should submit. It's not on the root list. Okay, why is that not on the root list? Yeah, I don't know if I've actually passed in the root. So you can use something called Ziggy to do this. However, I'm just going to do it manually because I don't think it's actually passed them through. I think I might need to initialize Ziggy and pass through the roots. So in this case, we just do to /blogs. It really doesn't matter that much. It's just a bit easier to use the named roots. So if we do this and try again. Blog.index is not defined. Oh, see, it's not. Is it blogs.index? Is that what I'm missing here? Yeah, I think was that is that why? Was it because it's blogs? Did I mess up there? I think I messed up there. blogs.store, and I think I messed up in here as well by doing them singular instead of blogs. So I think that's the only named route I've used, so that might be fine. So if we do that again, we should be able to do. We'll go back to blogs create and do a test blog. I'm gonna just fill this with nonsense. Right, there we go. So yeah, it's passed through. I wonder if we're on blogs now, so it should be showing our blogs that we're looping through. What I might do, it might not actually, it might just be blogs. We should probably try that. Yeah, there we go. So it's just blogs. For some reason, the other code base I'm using as like a reference has blogs.data, but yeah, it's not actually used. So that's fine. What we can do is, if we have a look, so we can create the page to show a blog. So we can do show.jsx, and basically it'll be the same as the other ones. So we've got like index here. Yeah, probably index is the best one. It's going to be the easiest one to use anyway. So we want to change blogs to just blog, and we don't want to loop through it. Instead, what we want to do is we just want to get, maybe in a H1, we can do a class name text gray 700, something like that, and we do blog dot. Oh yeah, no, that was fine. Blog.title. And then in a paragraph tag, maybe a little bit below this, MB4, we can do P, and then we do blog.body. And what we're going to do here is go to, so this will be an ID of 1, I think. So if we do /1, maybe. So we've got test title and test contents. If we go to 2, there we go. We've got test blog with our gibberish. So that's fine. I think we need to do P4. We'll add some padding just to make it look a little bit nicer. There we go. That H1 is really small. That is a really small H1. Is it actually a H1? Yeah, it is, but it's not. Let's go text XL. Okay, that'll do. We could probably go for like 3XL actually. That's probably more appropriate for a title. Oh yeah, there we go. Test blog, and then we've got it showing up. So, and then if we go back here, it's got all of our blogs. Now you could obviously make this look a lot better. You could add links to click into your blogs. You could add a button to click into the blog and do an update. There's probably no point in us doing an update actually. If we just have a look at the, does it say anything about updates in here? Because as far as I'm aware, yeah, so the update is going to be basically the same as what you've done, except instead of using post, you're going to use patch instead. So you should have enough information ready to do an update yourself. If you just copy the create page and change everything to use patch instead, or just change the where it says I'll show you, where it says basically it's this entire page you can use for update as well, and where it says inertia.post, you're just going to change that to use patch, and the root, if we use patch, and the root is going to be, I think it'll be blogs.patch or update actually, yeah, update. Blogs.update, I think that's right. Yeah, because then the other one's edit, so the page, yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, you can see it in here. It'll be, so the verb is put and patch, and the root name is photos.update. So in here we do blogs.update. Now, I'll let you sort of handle that yourself. It's basically just the same as create, but then you'd create a new file called update, and then yeah, basically do everything that's in here, but then just call patch with blogs.update. So easy enough, and that's great because it gives you an idea of how easy it would be to create your own dashboard and go through that yourself and just basically create a single page application, which is huge. It's really easy to do. That is basically it. We've covered everything on the back end that you probably would need to know, plus front end. Obviously, I mean, there's lots you can do really, but yeah, just showing, getting the data, so getting the props here, displaying them, displaying a singular one, and also creating is really what you'll need. And then delete and update. They work in similar ways to this, except you just call the specific function. So if you wanted to delete a blog, you would call inertia.delete root blog.delete, and then you wouldn't need value. I don't think you would just pass that through. I think that's how that would work. Or maybe values would get passed through. I think it'll say in here. Destroy actually. So not delete, destroy. Yes, that's easy enough. So I'll let you go off and do that on your own. That's basically it, really. If you want me to do any more videos on Laravel, let me know. I would love to do some more detailed tutorials, maybe one where we're not, working through it together, but just me showing you how to do maybe more complicated things, maybe accept payments, that kind of thing. That'd be a fun thing to do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I wanted to cover in this video. So thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.